Call me Logan. It's not my real name, but it's the one I use when the job requires anonymity. I'm a private investigator. And no, it's not as glamorous as you might think. Most of the time, it's just sitting in cars that smell like stale fries, watching people ruin their lives in real time. But occasionally, a case comes along that makes you sit up. This one started with a man named Mark. Mid-40s, wealthy, the type of person who could buy happiness if it were for sale. He walked into my office looking like he'd been mugged by his own emotions. Eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. "She's cheating," he said, voice flat. "I get this kind of thing all the time. People hoping I'll tell them they're wrong." But Mark wasn't hoping for anything. He already knew. The envelope he slid across the desk told me everything I needed to know. Inside were photos of his wife, Claire, a stunning blonde in her late 30s, along with her phone number and $10,000 in cash. No explanation, just evidence and a bribe to dig deeper. Her name's Claire. We've been married 16 years. Find out who he is. He didn't say who. He didn't need to. He'd already done the math. Claire was impressive. One of those women who could turn heads even in a potato sack. Tall, sharp cheekbones, always immaculately dressed. The kind of person for whom life just seems to work out. Except it wasn't yoga classes she was going to when she left the house. That much was clear. She led me to them on day 3, a trendy bistro on the west side. Glass walls and overpriced small plates. She wasn't dining alone. Enter Peter. Not just a guy, but a walking stereotype. Mid-30s, good suit, expensive watch, and a jawline that screamed bad decision. Peter wasn't some random fling. He was calculated. When Claire leaned over and touched his arm, laughing at something he'd said, I got the shot. Not because I needed it, but because people like Mark need to see it. Over the next week, the puzzle started to come together. Claire's little rendezvous weren't spontaneous hookups. They were planned. Hotels rented, apartments booked, even a quickie in Peter's car. She didn't just cheat. She excelled at it. I handed Mark the evidence. Photos, audio recordings, and text messages so graphic they could have been banned in 5 states. When he saw the pictures, his expression didn't change. No rage, no sadness, just a flicker of something dark behind his eyes. She thinks she's clever, he muttered. It was then I realized this wasn't a man unraveling. This was a man calculating. Mark didn't waste time. What about the guy? He asked, flipping to the pile like it was a menu. Peter Graham, I said. VP of sales at a mid-tier tech company. Married, 2 kids. Lives in the suburbs. Looks like a prick who thinks he's God's gift to women. Mark gave a humorless chuckle. Let me guess, his wife doesn't know. Not yet, I replied, leaning back. But from what I hear, she's not the type to take bad news lightly. Her name was Natalie Graham. She wasn't just Peter's wife. She was the owner of the apartment where Claire and Peter had been getting cozy. Talk about where you eat. Mark nodded like he was mentally moving chess pieces. Get in touch with her. Let's make this a team effort. That's how I found myself sitting across from Natalie in a cafe the next day. She was in her late 30s, petite with the sharpness that came from years of running her own business. When I laid out the evidence, she didn't cry. She didn't yell. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she stared at the photos of her husband with another woman in her apartment and said, What do you need from me? Mark was right. Natalie wasn't the type to take bad news lightly. The 4 of us, me, Mark, Natalie, and her brother, who for some reason was built like a tank, sat in her living room that evening laying out the plan. Natalie's father was ex-military with rumored mob ties. Her brother Danny was a boxer. Mark brought the legal expertise. I brought the dirt. And Natalie, she brought the fury. They're meeting at the apartment tomorrow night. I said, 7 p.m. sharp. I can rig the place with cameras. Natalie smirked. Don't bother. I've got my own system. I'll send you the feed. She stood, smoothing out her skirt. Here's how this is going to work. Mark, you'll get your divorce. I'll handle Peter. As for your wife, she glanced at me, then back at Mark. You want her humiliated or ruined? Both, Mark said without hesitation. Good, Natalie replied. They'll both regret this. Trust me. The next evening, I sat in my car outside the apartment complex, watching a live feed from Natalie's cameras on my laptop. Peter and Claire had no idea they were walking into the jaws of their own destruction. They arrived separately. Peter first, then Claire, all dressed up like they were going to prom instead of committing adultery. They greeted each other with a kiss that was nauseatingly passionate, then disappeared into the apartment. I texted Mark. "They're here." His reply was instant. "Let me know when it comes." It wasn't long before the noises started. Moans, gasps, the whole damn symphony. The camera caught everything. Peter grinning like he just won the lottery. Claire arching her back like she was auditioning for a porno. I sent the live link to Mark and Natalie. 10 minutes later, Mark's car pulled into the lot. Natalie wasn't far behind with Danny riding shotgun. This wasn't just a confrontation. This was a reckoning. Mark didn't storm in. That's what I liked about him. He wasn't some hot-headed idiot who'd let his emotions get in the way. No, he was ice-cold, calculated, a man who knew the value of timing. When he reached the apartment door, he knocked calmly. 3 measured taps. Inside, the live feed showed Peter pausing mid-thrust. Claire scrambled for the duvet, pulling it over herself like a child caught sneaking cookies. Mark called out, his voice steady. Peter looked confused but shrugged, slipping on a robe as he made his way to the door. "Stay here," he told Claire. "I'll get rid of them." When the door opened, Peter had just enough time to register Mark's face before a fist the size of a hammer smashed into his jaw. He went down like a sack of bricks. Mark stepped over him unfazed and walked straight into the bedroom. Claire froze, clutching the blanket to her chest. "Mark, what the hell are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" His voice was eerily calm, like he was asking for time. "Well, I figure if you're going to screw around in another man's wife's apartment, the least I could do is stop by and say hi." Peter groaned from the floor, clutching his face. "Who the hell are you?" he spat, blood dribbling from his mouth. Mark turned to him with a look of casual indifference. "Me? I'm the husband of the woman you've been screwing in your wife's apartment, you sack of—" He paused, glancing at Peter's jaw. "How's your jaw, by the way?" By now, Natalie and Danny were in the apartment too, standing silently in the doorway. Natalie looked at Claire with a mix of disgust and amusement while Danny crossed his arms, his sheer size making the room feel smaller. Peter scrambled to his knees. "Look, I don't know what you think this is, but—" Mark cut him off. "Oh, I know exactly what this is. It's you screwing my wife in the house your wife paid for. What I don't know is how you thought this would end." Claire started sobbing. "Mark, please, we can talk about this." "Talk?" He laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "We stopped talking when you decided your yoga instructor wasn't giving you the right kind of stretch." Peter, apparently feeling brave, tried to stand. "You can't just—" Mark turned on him. "Sit the hell down. Here's how this is going to go," Mark said, pacing the room. "Claire, you're done. Your clothes, your jewelry, everything I bought you, gone. Your access to the bank accounts, cut. You'll get the papers tomorrow. Don't bother contesting them. You lose. And as for you," he turned to Peter, "your wife has a few words for you." Natalie stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She tossed an envelope onto Peter's lap. "Divorce papers already signed. The house is mine. The kids are mine. The car." She smirked. "Oh, that stays with me too. You'll be lucky if you can afford an Uber by the time I'm done with you." Peter's face went pale. "Natalie, please. You don't have to." Her voice was ice. "You don't get to beg. Not after what you've done. You thought you could humiliate me." Mark lowered his gaze but kept his eyes locked on Peter. "I could beat the hell out of you right now," he said. "And believe me, I'd enjoy it. But I don't need to because in about 2 days your life is going to fall apart. Your wife's family? Let's just say they're not big fans of adultery. I hear her dad has connections. You might want to invest in a security system." Danny cracked his knuckles. "If he can afford one." Mark smiled, then turned back to Claire. "And you don't think I'm done? Our kids already know what kind of woman you are. They've seen the proof. You can explain yourself to them if they decide to answer your calls." Good luck with that. Claire's sobbing turned hysterical, but Mark was already walking out. Natalie and Danny followed, leaving Peter and Claire sitting in silence, staring at the mess they made. I shut off the live feed and leaned back in my car. Another marriage destroyed. Another pair of lives ruined. But hey, at least the job paid well. The days that followed weren't quiet. Not for Peter and Claire. The fallout hit them like a wrecking ball, and I had a front row seat to their unraveling. Peter's wife, Natalie, wasn't bluffing about her connections. Her father, a retired colonel with a Rolodex of powerful friends, made a few calls. By the end of the week, Peter's cushy VP job was gone. His professional reputation was in tatters. Word spread fast in their tight-knit suburb, and the once invincible Grahams became the neighborhood punchline. As for Claire, Mark made good on every promise. He froze her out of their account, served her with divorce papers that left her with barely enough for gas money, and ensured their kids wanted nothing to do with her. I heard she moved in with her sister, who wasn't exactly thrilled to have her freeloading. Mark wasn't the type to wallow. A week after the confrontation, he swung by my office to pick up the rest of the recordings. He looked lighter somehow, like a man who had finally dropped a weight he didn't realize he was carrying. Everything go as planned? I asked, handing him a USB drive. He smirked. Better. Claire's already begging for a second chance, but I blocked her number. The kids are staying with me, which is a win. And Natalie? Let's just say she's got her own revenge campaign going. That poor bastard Peter won't know what hit him. Think she should go easy on him? I asked, half joking. Mark chuckled, shaking his head. Not a chance. That woman's a shark. He turned to leave but paused at the door. You ever wonder why people do this? All the time. Haven't figured it out yet, I said. Mark gave a small nod. Let me know if you do. And then he was gone. People like Mark always stick with me. Not because of the drama or the money, but because of what they represent. He wasn't perfect. None of us are. But he handled betrayal the way most people only wish they could, with precision, control, and a cold dose of reality. Claire and Peter, they'll survive, but their lives will never be the same. Cheaters always think they're invincible, that their lives will hold up, that their actions won't have consequences. But when the walls cave in, and they always do, they realize too late that the price of their fun is steep. As for me, I poured myself a scotch that night and sat back to reflect on another job well done. Here's the thing about being a PI. You see the worst in people every day, but you also see the truth. And the truth is messy, ugly, and oddly satisfying. And if there's one lesson I've learned, it's this: never underestimate the quiet.